1970s Hollywood, one man dared to dream big, really big. Dino De Laurentiis, the legendary Italian producer of cult classics like Flash Gordon and Conan the Barbarian, decided he would remake one of cinema's most iconic monster movies, King Kong. Whereas the original was a dreamy Lost World type adventure, De Laurentiis' King Kong was going to be bigger and better. His version of Kong wouldn't be just a remake, it would be a spectacle on a grand scale. A $24 million gamble that would feature a towering 40-foot animatronic ape, the largest mechanical creature ever built for a film. Directed by Guillermin, he of the towering Inferno fame, one of the best disaster pictures of any decade and one of my favourite films of all time, and released in 1976, King Kong is a modernized retelling of the 1933 classic and stars Jeff Bridges as paleontologist Jack Prescott, Charles Grodin as slimy oil executive Fred Wilson,
Here's to the big one,
and the then unknown Jessica Lange as lovely starlet Dawn.
Like Dawn, except I switched 2 letters.
Also, Outdo from Deep Space Nine and Non from Superman 2. The screenplay by Lorenzo Semple Jr. he had written for the 1960s Batman show and would later write Flash Gordon, perfectly balances camp with pathos without ever going to outright parody. A quote by Semple himself was printed in a 1976 Times article reflects this. I'm not saying Kong is a serious film, with quotation marks around serious. What I am saying is that I think the script was just serious enough, without any snide winking at the audience. The trick was to walk a delicate line between screen romance and high camp. We all know the basic story. An exploration team sets out to an uncharted island. The starlet gets kidnapped. The starlet is chosen to be the bride of Kong. The crew embark on a rescue mission. Eventually the hero succeeds in rescuing said starlet. The creature is captured and put on display in New York, only to escape and wreak havoc. There are differences, of course. In the original King Kong, Denham leads an expedition to Skull Island to film an exotic picture to please his investors. The subtext relating to the despoiling of the natural world is there, but layered beneath the Lost World type adventure. This messaging comes into clearer focus in the 1976 version. Here, the Petrox crew comes to the island to find and extract oil, and end up finding more than they bargained for. However, before cameras even rolled, a behind-the-scenes battle was already raging. A battle over who had the right to bring Kong back to life. I won't go too deep into this here because I might do a separate video on the whole debacle. The short of it is this. In the early 1970s, both Paramount and Universal had their eyes on reviving the eighth wonder of the world. Jaws had done big business in 1975 and it got producers thinking about other big monster films. Paramount, working with De Laurentiis, struck a deal with RKO, the original studio behind the 1933 King Kong, to secure their remake rights. But Universal wasn't backing down. They claimed they had already been developing their own Kong project based on public domain elements of the original story. What followed was a legal tug-of-war, think hurt feelings and lawsuits, with both studios racing to get their version off the ground. At one point, De Laurentiis considered making the picture with Universal, but it never materialized. Universal wanted to do a period piece. Dino wanted to set it in the modern day of the 1970s. Ultimately, the courts sided with Paramount and De Laurentiis, although Universal did settle for 11% of De Laurentiis' take. Universal would have to wait nearly 30 years before releasing their own King Kong. That would be Peter Jackson's 2005 epic. But in 1976, the path was clear for De Laurentiis to go big, and he meant really big. Apparently, he once told John Guillermin, "For you, John, I make a 100-foot monster." So, De Laurentiis wanted to outdo the original in every way. Stop motion? Forget about it. In a move of unbridled visionary ambition. Or hubris. Dino envisioned a full-scale, freestanding animatronic Kong that could walk, roar, and even emote. He turned to Italian special effects maestro Carlo Rambaldi, who would later design the sandworms in Dune, and more famously the E.T. from, well, E.T., to bring this mechanical marvel to life. Rambaldi's creation was a behemoth. It stood at over 12 meters tall and weighed just under 6,000 kilos. The Colossus was also constructed with an aluminium frame weighing 3,100 kilos and covered in 460 kilos of Argentinian horsehair, sewn in strand by strand. Powering the monster was over 940 meters of hydraulic hose and just under 140 meters of electrical wiring. A team of 20 technicians was needed to operate the animatronic Kong. The cost of the Colossus, a staggering 1.7 to 2 million, nearly 10% of the film's entire budget. Accompanying the mechanical Kong were two giant hydraulic gorilla arms some 2 meters across and weighing 750 kilos each. They were designed and built separately from the animatronic Kong and were suspended by cranes in order to lift Jessica Lange into the air. There's a funny anecdote where Dino was invited to see the gorilla arms once they'd been constructed. So the story goes, one of the great gorilla arms extended in the producer's direction, then raised its middle finger. Dino apparently cracked up laughing. However, the giant arm proceeded to freeze and did so for about a week. Another time, the hydraulics began to leak fluid. Other mishaps were perhaps not as cute. At one point during production, it was rumoured that the budget ballooned due to the accidental creation of two full-scale right hands for Kong, an expensive oversight in the mechanical effects department. Though this claim has been disputed, actor Charles Grodin supported the story in his autobiography, recalling, "In the rush to begin production, two huge right hands were made by mistake, and the picture had to be delayed because neither worked." To further illustrate the chaos, stunt actress Sonia Woods once climbed into one of Kong's mechanical hands for a test run of the iconic scene where Dwan is lifted into the air. 4 technicians operated the hand's complex systems of jacks and levers, successfully closing his fingers around Woods and raising her approximately 3 meters off the ground. But suddenly, disaster struck. The wrist mechanism snapped, leaving Woods dangling in mid-air. Fortunately, Woods escaped with minimal injuries. But, as Grodin pointed out, had it been the less experienced Jessica Lange, the incident might have had a far more serious outcome. Not that Jessica Lange escaped completely unscathed. As recounted in the Times article, once a giant hand came down too hard on the actress, crushing her against the jungle floor. Another time, in another memorable sequence, King Kong is meant to show gentle affection, caressing Dawn's face and shoulders before giving her a light tap on the head. But the oversized animatronic hand had other plans. Due to a miscalculation by one of the technicians operating the mechanism, what should have been a tender gesture turned into an accidental thump, striking the actress hard enough to make her see stars. Other than that, the giant hands seemed to work pretty well. Like the shark in Jaws, the mechanical Kong did not work. However, unlike in Jaws, where they finally got the shark working, there was no such luck with the animatronic Kong. There are a couple of interesting anecdotes, both relating to the sequence in which Kong is revealed to a flabbergasted New York crowd. First, an extra was heard to say, "Oh my god, he's leaking!" And indeed, hydraulic fluid was seen to be leaking down Kong's leg. Another incident regarded actor Charles Grodin, the mechanical leg that was meant to loom over him as he tripped and fell while running away in the same scene. The issue was the mechanical leg, surprise surprise, didn't work properly. After hours and hours of trying to get the mechanical leg to move, Grodin relates that the foot did come down on him in the end, missing him by not that much. Later, the scene was re-edited to look as though Kong really had squashed him, something made doubly clear in the TV version. After all that, it's sadly no wonder that the animatronic Kong appears in the finished film for all of 15 seconds. Money well spent. So the filmmakers turned to Plan B. That Plan B was Rick Baker, a rising star in makeup effects who donned a gorilla suit for the majority of Kong's screen time. Later, he would famously do the effects for An American Werewolf in London and Gremlins 2, among other things. By all accounts, Baker really got into the role of Kong. As he put it, "I guess disappearing into my gorilla suit and thumping my chest has something to do with the transference of power. You really do feel pretty powerful down in there." Even the director was surprised how much Baker got into the role. To do so, the special effects maestro designed 4 different suits complete with silicone-filled muscles and animatronic hands. Meanwhile, Collo Rambaldi designed 5 animatronic masks designed to showcase Kong's various emotional states. To pull this off, hydraulic facial muscles tugged the features into whatever mood was needed, all controlled by a technician. To complete the performance, Baker wore contact lenses. His performance brought emotion and agility that the giant robot simply couldn't. However, the suit took its toll, and Baker sweated off 2.2 kilos every working day. Still, the full-size Kong wasn't a total waste. It was used for promotional purposes and a few wide shots, and it became a symbol of 1970s Hollywood excess. Ambitious, expensive, and just a little bit broken. Still, it wasn't all about the technical achievements for Dino. As he famously stated, nobody cried when Jaws died. He wanted the audience to feel something for Kong, to sympathize with the big ape. Every single character in the original King Kong hates the oversized simian, from start to finish, even Aunt Darrow. The genius of that movie was how the filmmakers make you root for Kong via his very expressive facial features. In this one, Dawn actually begins to feel an affinity for Kong. She sees the monkey behind the monster, and we are sad when his eventual demise comes around. Despite mixed reviews, King Kong was a box office success, grossing over $90 million worldwide. It even won a Special Achievement Academy Award for visual effects, even though those special effects don't quite hold up 40 years later. After filming, the animatronic Kong was largely abandoned. It was too bulky and unreliable to be reused or displayed. Some parts, like the giant hands, were preserved for promotional events or ended up in storage. But the full animatronic ape faded into obscurity, forgotten, dismantled, scattered to the winds. However, it lives on in legend. It inspired theme park attractions, influenced future creature effects, and remains the largest animatronic creature ever built for a film. In an era before CGI, this was movie magic at its most audacious, a 40-foot dream that roared, if only for a moment. So, next time you watch King Kong 1976, remember, behind that fleeting glimpse of a giant ape was a mountain of ambition, engineering, artistry, and legal drama. Thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next one. Until then, take care, bye bye.